video of the guy who takes the oil filler cap, twists it, says, hey, it's shaking, it's moving up and down, you need a whole motor. And then he'll take a rubber glove and put it over it and say, look at all that pressure going through past the rings, you need a whole engine. Do I really need a motor? So let's actually test this car to see if it actually has blown rings. Let's take the spark plugs out. We're going to do a compression check, and then we're going to do a leak down test by shoving this down the spark plug hole, putting air pressure down it, and seeing if the air is getting past the rings. So you're probably thinking, hey, if I pull the cap off of my Volkswagen, how come the engine didn't die? Well, that's because I've disconnected the PCV hose that goes from the air intake to the PCV valve here. I do this on my personal cars, and then I put a catch can right here and run directly to a catch can. And that's because on these turbo cars, these valves are known to go out, and the air from the turbo pressure would go right into the crankcase and blow all your gaskets, including the rear main seal. Then you got to pull the engine. It's not really worth it to me, not to mention the direct injection, the valves, all that oil going on the valves from the PCV system. And, every 30,000 miles, you got to tear it all apart and clean all your valves. So I run a catch can. Okay, compression is 200 all the way across. Let's do a leak down on cylinder number 1. There's just a little bit of air, not much. Why is the oil cap bouncing up and down? Obviously, you're going to get some blow-by because there's a gap in the rings. Especially these turbo cars, the gap is actually even larger. So you're going to have some amount of leak. So let's think about this. I know everybody thinks that, when the piston comes down, it pulls a vacuum, and then when it goes up, it compresses, right? And everybody talks about what's going on here, but what about down here in the crankcase? When the piston comes up, it's pulling a vacuum in the oil pan crankcase area, and when it goes down, it's putting pressure on this down in the crankcase. It's doing the same vacuum pressure down here in the crankcase as it is up here, and nobody thinks about that. So therefore, your oil pressure cap, your oil filler cap might be bouncing around just because the vacuum and pressure down here. Think about it. And let's not even talk about the balance shafts that are turning, causing air to be distributed like a fan. But is the oil cap completely blowing off the car? No. So let's just think about this, just with a little vacuum pump like this. It's going to pull, push, pull, push, pull, push. It's going to cause an up and down pressure, not only just up here, but down here in the crankcase. All right, it's raining in Florida this morning. Let's test my other vehicle. This is a 2011 VW Tiguan. Well, gosh, that one's blowing too. I guess I need an engine. No, because the same thing. I actually have this one hooked up to a catch can right here as well. So does my VW Tiguan, does it need a new motor? No, because it only has 50,000 miles. And what about this one? Well, I just put this motor in, and I don't know how many miles are on the rings, but the head is new, or I redid the head. Now, it might be different if you did this and the whole cap just completely blew off, or if you put the rubber glove on it, right, and it completely blows up like this. Now that might be a problem. Ah! So does this make sense? Leave a comment if you agree or disagree.